EA is now on Twitch. Join us Wednesday nights when Alistair reads a bedtime story, and Sunday mornings for a few hours of chill casual gaming, plus interviews, special guests, pickup streams, and more. Visit twitch.tv/EA Podcasts and follow us to be notified when we go live, plus access VODs of past broadcasts.
Escape Pod, episode 944. How to keep your cool if you're a mech first day on the job. Part 2 of 2. By Vera Brooke.
Hi everyone, welcome to Escape Pod, the weekly science fiction podcast. This is episode 944. I'm Alistair, your host, and we're back with the second half of last week's amazing story. That story is How to Keep Your Cool If You're a Mech First Day on the Job, written by Vera Brooke and narrated by Iba Almenkas. Vera is a neuroscientist turned speculative fiction writer. Her short fiction has appeared, among other places, in Analog, Cast of Wonders, Factor 4 magazine, Utopia Science Fiction, and Hyphen Punk. She is trying very hard to infuse her fiction with hope and optimism, but the world being what it is, dystopia still often wins out. Occasionally, her stories grow into novels. This one was first published in the Coloured Lens issue 43, spring of 2022, and this is the concluding part, so if you haven't heard episode 943 yet, please go back. The story and the narration and the production are all superb. This is one of my favourites that we've run in quite some time. Your narrator this week is Iba Almenkas. Iba is an Emmy-nominated writer, director, producer currently working for KLCS PBS in Los Angeles. Iba is a voracious reader who began narrating fiction podcasts nearly a decade ago, and is now one of the 3 narrators on Inner Space Outer Thoughts, Caltech NASA JPL's first science fiction anthology. In her free time, she's learning to make neon signs and getting way too into hockey. So like I say, first, if you haven't, go check out the first part of this story in last week's episode. Second, come back here and get moving, because we're on a deadline, and it's story time.
Jenna gave herself a few moments to seethe in silence before she spoke, to make sure her voice was calm. I can't move. Did you hear that? Darren took a swig of his water, then bit into his sandwich. He looked around the table at the others, not even a glance at Jenna. She can't move. It's a problem, Skye admitted. Definitely is, Ireland agreed. Most unfortunate. This from Khalil. There was a pause as they waited for Urich, but he was staring at his computer screen. He jumped up when Ireland's elbow poked his ribcage. We're still good. No delays. I'm keeping track. We're talking about the newbie, Urich, Ireland said. She can't move. Urich blinked, still oblivious. Why not? What's wrong? That's a very good question, Darren said, and this time he looked straight at Jenna. Her temper flared. I can't move because you froze my ass, she growled. Darren chewed on his sandwich, unfazed. Correct. Jenna's insides boiled. Then the pieces clicked into place. Wait, this is my lesson? We have to start with the basics, her boss admitted. Jenna gritted her teeth. You mean you're going to keep me standing here like a moron, stuck in this suit, instead of letting me take my break? What if I want to eat lunch? She hesitated, but she was past holding back. What if I have to use the damn restroom? Darren shrugged, but his expression was somber. Like I told you this morning, I consider self-control a basic requirement for the job. The part about me not losing my shit if things went wrong? Right, I remember. She might not be able to move her body, but she still had her tongue and her face. She scowled. I had no idea you meant it literally. Laughter shook the table, with Khalil snorting so hard he choked on his food and had to spit a mouthful into a napkin while Urich pounded him on the back. Darren's lips twitched. Okay, Jenna. He rose from his seat and walked over, his half-full water bottle in hand. You want me to lift the lock so you can get out of that suit? It's easy. Jenna narrowed her eyes, suspecting a trap. Really? Darren stopped 3 feet away from her. Sure. All you have to do is say the safe word. The safe word? There was no safe word. Was there? Jenna glanced at the others and caught a look of confusion on Khalil's face, but Skye kicked him under the table before he could speak. 2 words, Darren continued. You already know them. You're probably thinking them right now. I quit. Inside her frozen exosuit, Jenna shivered in fury. Screw you! I am not going to quit. So leave me alone. I'm fine. She had to pee, that was true. But she could hold it. When they got busy at Lazy Dog's, especially when one of the other servers quit without notice or didn't show, she had to hold it for half the night and run around the whole time. This was nothing. It wasn't so bad at all. She wasn't baking in the sun. The breeze from the fan wasn't too cold either. She could handle it. Darren lifted his bottle to his lips and gulped down the rest of the water. Come on, Jenna. There are so many better, safer jobs. You could work in a nice office and drink all the water you want. Gallons of it, cold and refreshing. And the restroom would be right there, you know. Jenna pursed her lips. She wished her boss would shut up about the water. The very thought made her bladder fuller. She couldn't turn her head away. The carbon fiber spine hooked up to her hard hat prevented the movement. But she could glare just fine, and did. Suit yourself. I've got to hit the John. And Darren tossed his empty bottle into a recycling bin and strolled out the back door. 32 minutes later, according to the clock on Jenna's display, a faint buzzing tickled her ears. She strained her neck towards the open gate of the hangar, but her suit was still frozen, and she could only turn her head an inch. Not enough to look outside. No one at the lunch table reacted, their attention on Urich as he explained a hollow blueprint of a house that he called up from his computer, with occasional questions and discussions from the others. The food containers were long gone, the lunch break transformed into a work meeting. Guys, Jenna said, do you hear this? Heads turned as they looked at her, instantly alert. Hear what? Skye frowned. A buzzing, Jenna said. Her high-tech hard hat was probably enhancing the sound. She was the only one wearing one at the moment. Very faint. The sound grew louder, like a swarm of mosquitoes heading their way, getting closer. Darren got to his feet and walked over. I hear it. The drone must be early. He turned to Jenna. How are you doing? I'm not a fan of your teaching methods, she said dryly. Darren lifted an eyebrow. I can live with that. Now, don't lean back or you're going to fall. Take a step forward. He lifted his arm and tapped on his touchscreen. And go. The tension went out of her exosuit, her center of gravity all wrong for a moment, and Jenna half-stepped, half fell forward before catching her balance. She took a few more steps in place, twisting her torso from side to side, lifted her arms, and turned her head. It felt good to move again. Somehow, the suit fit her body better than before, like a new pair of sneakers after she had broke them in. Not that she was going to share it with her boss. She was still mad at him. You owe me a lunch break, she said. Darren's blue eyes flashed. Can I open a tab? It might be easier. We're just getting started. We can settle my bill when we're all done. Jenna blinked in surprise, the reference to her job at Lazy Dog's sparking an odd flicker of pleasure. So her boss had taken the time to read her application and learn her job history after all. She didn't think he had. Not that it excused freezing her in her suit, Jenna reminded herself. It didn't. Life had knocked her through a whole series of hard, thankless jobs after Paps had died, and there was always some sort of hazing, some sort of test for the newcomers. It was such a shitty thing to do. A cruel and pointless power trip. Nothing more. Even at Lazy Dog's, by far her favorite place to work, she found the pockets of her apron filled with ketchup on her first night. For once, she would like her coworkers to trust her and cut her some slack, instead of her having to prove herself from day one. She wanted to do a good job. She wanted to do right by the team. She just needed time to find her legs under her. Hell, nobody was born a mech. They all had to learn and grow into it. Even Darren. Outside the hangar, red dust was blowing, the buzzing now loud and mechanical, a low whirring undercut by a rhythmic hiss of rushing air. an engine and several rotating blades. How big was the drone? Jenna wondered. She badly needed to use the restroom, but her curiosity won out and she lingered. Sky and Khalil had hurried past her and Darren and out the gate to check on the delivery. Now, Sky looked back over her shoulder. Boss? We have a visitor. Darren's face darkened and he cursed fiercely and stalked outside. Jenna followed. It wasn't a drone. A sleek, executive hovercar touched down on a patch of packed dirt and powered down with a grunt. As soon as the blades stopped and the red dust settled, a woman in a shimmering gray pantsuit emerged, her blue-black high heels and leather bag perfectly matching her blue-black shoulder-length hair, or maybe vice versa. She squinted against the hot, bright sun and shaded her eyes with her hand, her mouth twisting with disapproval. Jenna had never seen someone more out of place. Darren glared at the stranger. What do you want? Jenna saw his bad mood earlier, but this was different, ice cold and laced with resentment. He and the exec clearly knew each other and hated each other's guts. The woman smiled, but her voice dripped with venom. Really, Darren, would it kill you to be polite? A simple professional courtesy. Not to mention I'm much higher in the food chain. Darren spoke through clenched teeth. We're busy. A smirk. I can see that. Irilyn walked up to Darren and handed him a hard hat. The hat was smeared with the printing clay, and Jenna could smell the stench from where she stood. Darren nodded thanks to Irilyn, his eyes brightening for a moment, then offered the filthy headgear to the visitor. If you really want to see what we do here, by all means, come along. But you'll need a hard hat, a safety rule. The woman glanced at the hat and shrunk back in disgust. That won't be necessary. Not my department. She flashed Darren a smile sharp enough to cut. I'm here to talk to your new team member. Wait a second. Darren tried to block her way, but the exec slipped past him, one hand clutching the bag, her high heels clicking as she took quick, cautious steps on the gravel. She had impressive balance. Jenna had to give her that. Jenna would have broken her ankle already. She avoided any shoes she couldn't run in, and high heels topped the list. The woman headed straight for Jenna, as though guided by a targeting system. She extended her hand for a handshake, then registered Jenna's exosuit and robot gloves, and opted for an ultra-friendly smile instead. You must be Joanna. It's Jenna. Wonderful to meet you. The exec rattled out her own name and title, but she spoke so fast that Jenna only caught 2 words. Retention strategies. Her full bladder pinged, and she winced. Seriously? Retention as in holding it in? She could do without another reminder. The woman was still talking, so Jenna made an effort to focus. First, on behalf of myself and everyone in the Employee Success Division, I want to say, welcome aboard. We are thrilled to have someone with your training and experience join the team, and we know you will be a terrific asset and make fantastic contributions to our company's production goals and our mission to provide innovative, sustainable, and affordable housing options to all members of our community. The speech would sound less memorized if the woman paused to take a breath instead of rushing through the script at breakneck speed. Thanks. Jenna moved from foot to foot, impatient to wrap it up. She should have shed her suit and snuck out to the porta-john when she'd had a chance. The woman's eyes narrowed, and a shrewd, hungry look came onto her face. What's wrong, Joanna? Jenna stopped moving. What do you mean? Something is bothering you. Did anything happen? The woman moved a step closer and lowered her voice, as if the sound system in Jenna's hard hat didn't already pick up every rustle of her expensive pantsuit, the fabric glittering in the sun like the scales of a snake. You can trust me. It's not about pointing fingers anyway. It's about improving the culture for all future employees. A positive experience on the first day is critical to employee success. The woman's eyes flickered to Darren, then back to Jenna, her expression predatory, a fox ready to pounce. So if anyone has treated you poorly today, I need to know, and I will personally make sure that they will never do it again. Heat rushed through Jenna, her tongue itching to speak. Someone did treat her poorly. In fact, motion locking her suit was probably classified as harassment. She could get Darren fired. A small part of her wanted to. Except, Jenna had never ratted on anyone in her life. And that's what it was, no matter how retention strategies spun it. She would settle the score herself, Later. Besides, the woman didn't give a crap about Jenna. She had her own agenda, to strike at Darren and use Jenna as a hammer. Thanks, but so far, so good, Jenna said brightly. I'm just still getting used to all this cool gear, you know? She gestured at her suit and hard hat. Wonderful. I'm happy to hear that. The woman's voice was chilly. Well, if you ever have any issues or concerns, any at all, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here for you, Joanna. Jenna would rather dig a ditch with her bare hands. Yep, got it. The real delivery drone, when it arrived a moment later, was a quadcopter the size of a briefcase, with a propeller in each corner and virtually soundless. It descended to Urik's eye level, confirmed his identity with a retinal scan, then deposited a small package at his feet and took off again, vanishing into the bright sky. Was it the right part? Could they fix the printhead and finish the house as planned? All eyes were on Urik, including Jenna's, as he tore open the package and inspected the contents. When he gave a thumbs up, the response was a collective sigh of relief. Skye, Khalil, and Irulan exchanged high fives. Jenna felt a sting of disappointment at being left out, but Darren was already marching towards them. He ignored the exec and addressed Jenna, his tone neutral. Do you need more time? Jenna shook her head. Nope, all done. What she needed was the restroom. Her boss gave a slight nod before turning to the visitor. Okay, then let me show you out. The woman huffed with irritation, her smile gone. You know, I've had it with your attitude. I still need to explain to our vice president for employee relations what the hell happened here last week. And how am I supposed to do that? Jenna drifted a few steps away and stopped, the urge to eavesdrop stronger than the need to empty her bladder. It's all in my report, Darren said. The woman glared. Your report was one sentence long. He quit. What else do you want me to say? Quit after just 3 days on your team? And that doesn't bother you? No thoughts on how to prevent an embarrassing fiasco like that in the future? Darren's face darkened. You want my thoughts? Okay, here's one. Scrap the idiotic hiring algorithms and let me pick my own crew, based on actual skills, not goddamn keywords. The woman blinked in shock. You? That's never going to happen. Then stop wasting my time. I have a house to print and a new mech to train. Jenna's ears prickled. A new mech? He meant her. Fine, suit yourself. The woman gave a malicious smirk, any pretense of sophistication gone. But just so you know, I'm assigning you an online training course in Workday, leading with compassion to maximize team productivity. I think you will really benefit from it. You have a week before it's overdue, and you know how many notifications that will generate. And she tossed her black hair and stalked away. Darren watched her go, his jaw clenched and teeth grinding like he was chewing on rocks. Jenna turned, startled, her carbon fiber elbow nearly missing Skye's ribcage. Yeah? I bet you need to pee. Come on. Skye pointed towards the hangar. I'll help you out of the suit. Jenna's pride flared, and she was tempted to refuse the offer, to deny she had to pee at all. But that would be stupid. Her bladder throbbed, on the verge of bursting. Not something she wanted to experience on her first day. Or ever. That would be great. Thanks. Skye was still there, waiting to help her back into the suit, when Jenna got out of the porta-john, her bladder blissfully empty. Why'd he quit? The new guy before me, Jenna asked. Skye frowned. That guy? Ugh. Never should have been hired. He thought robots would do all the work for him, and he'd just sit on his ass and press buttons. And when Darren disabused him of that notion, he got all pissy, ignoring directions, and almost walked into the printhead. Irulan had to smash through a wall to pull him out of the way, and then he quit. And good riddance, Jenna said, with feeling. Skye chuckled. Damn right. Then her expression hardened. He really screwed us, though. Just up and left in the middle of a shift. Urik had to suit up to help us take apart the printer, and that's not his job. We're still behind schedule. Although we'll catch up. We always do. Skye shook her head. Darren was pissed. He'd just trained the guy for 2 whole days, and that asshole took off on the 3rd. Uh-huh. The pieces snapped together in Jenna's mind. So that's why Darren was so harsh and skeptical when she showed up today. why he taunted her about quitting, why he froze her suit to test her resolve. She was another newbie the company hired without his input, although if anything went wrong, if she got injured or caused damage, it would be on Darren's head. It didn't excuse him, and it was still unfair to Jenna, and she had no intention of letting it go. But now she understood his reasons. The rest of the workday passed quickly. When the printing resumed, Darren told Jenna, less gruffly this time, to watch and learn but stay out of their way. With the new heat break in place and a clean nozzle spitting out a perfect roll of clay, the small crew were rushing to make up for the lost hour, and Darren didn't have time to keep an eye on her. They would start the proper training the next morning. But Jenna hated being idle while the others were so busy, and she kept asking for a job until her boss relented and gave her one, scrubbing the clogged extrusion nozzle. At first, Jenna was indignant. A cleaning job? Really? Was Darren messing with her again? But he wasn't. The job was time-sensitive, because a fully hardened clay was almost impossible to remove, and it required precision and a light touch, which meant no suit and only latex gloves. With everyone else occupied, Jenna was the only one who could do it. For all the high-tech advances in 3D printing, the cleaning tasks still fell to humans. Jenna mused about the irony of it as she pried bits of clay from the nozzle in the lengthening shadow of the printer frame. Dusk was falling by the time that Darren called it a wrap. A good few hours past the time their shift was supposed to end, although no one complained. The house was finished, and that's what mattered. All except for the precast roof, which a specialty crane would drop, section by section, into the rebar cages on top of the walls, when all 5 houses were done. It had been a productive day, and that made up for Jenna's aching muscles. But she didn't forget about Darren freezing her suit. And to think of it, none of her crewmates had stood up for her or tried to intervene either. Which meant that Jenna had a score to settle with all of them, and she'd love to settle it right now, tonight, and get a fresh start tomorrow. When Ulrich powered down the printer, Jenna expected a hasty exodus. Surely they all wanted to go home and kick back after a hard day. Or just escape the earthy stench of the printing clay that somehow grew more and more potent after sundown. But the group lingered, Skye, Irilyn, and Khalil all throwing Darren pointed looks while he stared back grimly, lips tightly shut. Skye wasn't having it. Come on, boss. You should say something. And just to make her meaning crystal clear, her eyes flicked to Jenna. Darren frowned, but he was outnumbered. He cleared his throat and turned to Jenna. You did well today. You kept your cool. Jenna grinned, a spark of an idea sending a shiver down her spine. You kept your cool. That was it. She knew what she had to do. Thanks. I appreciate it. So, how about a round of cold beer? My treat. A look of surprise crossed Darren's face, and his blue eyes drilled into her like lasers. Jenna held his gaze and kept smiling, although her nerves were in knots. She had one shot at this. If she pushed it, her new boss might get suspicious. She sensed the others were letting him decide. Come on, Darren. Say yes. Who doesn't want a cold beer after a long, hot day? Darren's lips twitched. Okay, why not? Jenna beamed. Great. I know a perfect place. As far as the names of pubs went, Lazy Dog's had to be the least accurate in the city, since most of its regulars were construction and hospital workers who busted their asses all day like nobody's business. The cavernous main room was all dark wood and green synthetic leather, with dim, warm lights and old frame photos of canines of all shapes and sizes on the walls. The restaurant took up one half of the room, while the bar with standing counters took up the other. The place was packed when Jenna and her guests arrived. Every table, every booth, every stool at the long bar taken. But that was no surprise. Lazy Dog's was always busy on the weekdays. In fact, Jenna counted on it. Wow, Skye said, looking around. This place is popular. Don't worry, Jenna said. Several servers deftly wove their paths through the crowd, carrying trays with hot food or cold drinks. Jenna waved to one, Moira, whom she'd trained as her replacement, and the girl hurried over, grinning. Jenna, are you back? Bob will be so happy. We're swamped, as always. No, sorry, Jenna smiled. I need a favor, though. I promised my friends cold beer, and I was hoping to use the party room. Moira sighed. Sure thing. Go right ahead. I'll get your order ready. Jenna almost laughed. She might actually be able to pull off her crazy idea. Thanks. I'll come say hello to Bob in a bit. A party room? Darren commented. Sounds fancy. Jenna shrugged. I used to work here. It's a perk. Then she turned to the group. Come on, follow me. We're going this way. The private party room was in the back. A smaller, windowless cavern with large wall screens and green synthetic leather couches surrounding a low table in the middle. The air was blissfully cool, the AC humming in the background. Jenna had picked a slightly longer route to avoid the restrooms. Come on in. She held the door open with a smile, letting her guests enter first. One by one, Khalil, Uruk, Sky, and Irilyn walked in and stretched out on the couches with a chorus of grateful sighs. Only Darren paused in the doorway, frowning. I appreciate the gesture, but we're thirsty enough to drain a lake, and I won't let you blow your first paycheck. We'll split the bill 6 ways. Laughter tickled Jenna's throat, but she managed to keep her voice steady. Don't worry, I get a great discount. The moment stretched, with Darren still standing in the door, one leg in the room, the other out, and it took all of Jenna's willpower not to nudge him inside. But at last, he walked in. Jenna's spine tingled. Make yourselves comfortable. I'll be right back with the beer. And she closed the door, savoring the satisfying click, and hurried to find her former boss. Minutes later, Jenna had Bob's office all to herself. She spun around in the chair, propped her feet on the desk, and faced the intercom screen. This was going to be fun. She hit the remote, and the party room filled the screen. Hi there, Jenna said. Her guests could see her on the screen and hear her on the speakers, just as she could see and hear them. A generous case of beer sweated on ice on the table, together with a platter of food, all delivered through a rotating tray built into the wall. Khalil, Irilyn, Sky, and Uruk each held an open bottle already. Jenna grinned. I hope you enjoy the beers. Cheers! Her crewmates raised their beers to her in response. Bob, the owner of Lazy Dogs, used to be a coast-to-coast trucker before automatic transport fleets made his job obsolete. Now, maybe to catch up for all those dull years alone behind the wheel, he loved nothing more than to be let in on a mischief, and was perfectly willing to lend his property, whether a room or a volume of beer, to share in the laugh. Darren walked up to the screen, his eyes on Jenna. To her disappointment, his hands were empty. Too bad. She was hoping he'd finish a beer or two before he realized her plan. The door is locked, he said casually. Jenna popped her own beer bottle open and took a sip. The cool, crisp taste was exquisite, with just a tinge of bitterness that lingered on her tongue. Perfect. If the door is locked, then it's a problem. Darren's eyes flashed as the realization hit him. You locked it, didn't you? Foreheads swung in Jenna's direction, various degrees of shock on their faces. Jenna grinned. I did. For the first time since she met him, Darren smiled, one corner of his lips riding up higher than the other, as if he was out of practice, his facial muscles unused to forming that particular configuration. An understanding passed between them, and Jenna smiled back. Something told her that they were going to get along just fine from now on. So how do we unlock the door, Jenna? Darren asked. Oh, all you have to do is say the safe word. I'm sorry for being an ass. Otherwise, I'd go easy on the beer. Sorry. I know it's delicious, but hydraulic pressure and all that. Darren actually chuckled. I guess we deserve it. I almost forgot. Jenna picked up the remote again. White Winter or a babbling stream? Let's go with babbling stream. A looped nature video filled the other screens in the party room. I just love the sound of running water, don't you? There was a collective groan. Well, I'll check on you all in a bit. And Jenna turned off the intercom. The saying was true. Revenge was best served cold. Chilled beer in a sweating bottle with the AC turned way up cold. But with the score settled and the payback delivered, she decided she liked her new job. And her new team. Sure, she had a lot to learn, and the job would kick her ass for the first few weeks until she got the hang of it. But that was fine. She couldn't wait to put on the exosuit and help print another house tomorrow.
Last time, we talked about how Brooke deals with the slow expansion of futuristic technology, and that constantly permeable membrane between the speculative and the real. This time, I want to talk about the people at the heart of the story and what that tells us about this world, and why this sort of story resonates so hard. The hope I talked about last week is contained, like everything, it often seems, inside a distribution system that is equal parts capitalistic and rigidly scheduled. The future is coming. That's a given. But how it's monetized and whether it will be evenly distributed is a very, very different matter. That's one of the three ways that Brooke makes the leads here so nuanced and likable. This is utopian technology being handled by people who are constantly struggling with the demands of upper and, let's face it, more often middle management, and are constantly asked to do more than they should with less than they need. I'm guessing a lot of you are nodding to that, and to you I say hello. Please remember to hydrate today, and also schedule meetings with yourself on staff calendars so no one will bother you. I love that I get to use this particular metaphor, so please forgive me if I sound a little overexcited, but that commonality is the foundation Jenna and Darren build their working relationship on. What they bring to it is the other two ways Brooke makes these characters so relatable. Jenna's hard-won mental toughness and determination is familiar to anyone who has ever worked a retail or service industry job. Brooke sketches in some subtle implications too about just how bad it got given what Jen has stepped across to, but honestly anyone who's worked in these fields already knows. Some days you deal with people, and some days you deal with people. Darren has the exact same experience, just from the other side of things. Darren's bullying assholery in the first half of the story is one part unforgivable and one part familiar. The advantage to this sort of team is that they're tight. The disadvantage is if you piss them off, or even if you're the next person into the room after the person who's pissed them off, then you are starting way behind where you should be. That's not fair at all, but often that's how it is. That's why I love the ending here so much. Jenna sees Darren for who he is, a guy doing his best in a shitty situation. Darren sees Jenna for who she is, someone determined to do the job with zero tolerance for bullshit and fully prepared to push back. It doesn't excuse the hazing. Nothing excuses hazing, but it does put it in context, both for the story and for its speculative elements. It may be a future where houses can be 3D printed in a matter of hours, but humans are still going to bond over cheap pranks, cheaper beer, and cheaper bosses. Here's to 'em. Great work, everyone. As is always the case, we rely on you to pay our authors, our narrators, and our crew, and to cover our costs. We're entirely donation funded, and last year that changed in some very exciting ways, with EA becoming a registered US non-profit. We ran a great end-of-year campaign in 2023 to raise awareness about all the new ways you can help us out. For example, if you are a US taxpayer, you might be able to claim a deduction if you donate to us. Check out the short metacast on escapeartists.net for more ideas on this, and how to get in touch if you think of something else that's more meaningful to you. One-time donations are amazing and gratefully received, but what really makes a difference is subscriptions. They give us stability and a reliable income we use to bring free and accessible audio fiction to the world. You can subscribe for a monthly or annual donation through PayPal or Patreon. Not only do you help us out immensely when you do this, or donate, but you get access to a raft of bonus audio. You help us, we help you, everything becomes just a little easier. Even if you can't donate financially, please consider spreading the word about us. If you liked an episode, then please consider sharing it on social media, or blogging about us, or leaving a review. It really does all help, and as is always the case, all help is always gratefully received. So thank you once again. And thanks to the Escape Pod team for letting me back in the big chair for these 2 episodes. This has been a blast. I love this one. We are back next week with Talking with Thorny by Stetson Bostic. Valerie's hosting, Summer's on audio duty, and Samuel Poots is narrating. Then, as now, it will be a production of the Escape Artists Foundation and distributed under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. We leave you this week with this quote from Sneakers. Carl, it's fascinating what $50 will get you at the county records office. Bishop, what have you got? Carl, Playtronics corporate headquarters, the complete blueprints. Bishop, not bad. Not bad, Carl. Carl, well, Thanks. Bishop. Where'd you get the $50? Carl. Took it from Mother's wallet. Bishop. Good. We'll see you next week, folks. Until then, have fun.